Hey folks, it's Rob Flux here with another Sunday session, and today we're talking all about what property research tools that you're going to need in order to get yourself, to become, an avid property developer. Now, I get asked this question a ton of times because there are so many different software subscriptions out there, and they all cost money, and so I get asked this all the time as to what tools do you actually need in order to get across the line. Now, there are multiple types of tools, and they all have specific purposes. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and categorize them for you today, and then based on that, give a small overview. And unfortunately, given time constraints, I won't be able to dive into using every single tool, but I might, if time permits, dabble in one or two. But fundamentally, we're going to just give that an overview, give you an idea of the features, the benefits, the challenges, constraints, and price points for each of the software tools that actually sit out there. So that said, what are the categories of software tools? Well, there's fundamentally three software tools types that you actually need. So there's a sales research tool. So that is understanding what the raw site is actually going to be selling for, and or the property that you're trying to sell, what you're trying to buy, I should say, what that should actually be purchased for. Then there's, using the same tool again to say, what am I going to be selling the finished product for? So you can actually compare the features and benefits of the different products, start to categorize, is it new, is it near new, those sorts of things. And so the sales research tools are then going to help you do a whole bunch of things to actually understand, when the person's selling it, has it been on the market, how long it's been on the market for, what is the history of sales of that particular property, how many times has it sold in the past, what has it sold for previously, what does the the current market look like in that particular area. So the sales research tools help you do all of that, and I'll dive into that in a little bit more detail. The next category is the development research tools. So the development research tools are all about the development capability of the site. That is, what is the yield that you can actually get out of it? So all the planning rules, the issues, the constraints and challenges that might actually sit there, because the zoning is the potential for a site, but there are also a whole bunch of constraints that might actually limit that potential. So that may never actually get realized. Boy, I'm having a tongue twister today. So that's the development research tools. And then lastly, some suburb research tools. And that is at the point where you're actually going to be creating new stock. You want to understand the suburb in a little bit more detail with regards to the demographic that's actually sitting there, to understand what kind of product should you be creating. So should it be an owner-occupier? Should it be investment stock? Should it be something with a backyard? Should it be something with low maintenance? Those sorts of things, the suburb research tools are going to give you all of the insights into that. Now, for each of those three categories, there are both free and paid tools. And so you get what you pay for, as the expression says. So there's really a small, medium, and large feature set that is going to sit in each of those categories, that is going to help you to actually determine what it is that you're able to achieve based on your budget and price point as you go. Now, depending upon where you are in your education journey, you may not be ready for all three sets of tools, because that's three lots of subscriptions to three lots of platforms. And if you're not at that point on your journey, there's no point having the subscription happening right here, right now. So instead, one of the ones that you're going to start with first and foremost is the sales research tool. That is probably the starting point for absolutely everything, understanding what it is that you should be buying and what it is that you're going to be selling. So let's dive into the sales research tools in a little bit more detail. So what can be achieved? Well, firstly, it's going to allow you to do the research on the buy price for the raw site. I touched on that before. So when we say the research for that buy price, we want to understand all of the comparable sales that are actually happening in the area, what has recently sold, both in the local geographic area, in the most recent dates, as close as humanly possible to the identical site that you've actually got. So being able to filter for all sorts of things that help you to minimize that. So being able to filter for the zoning, the land type, the land size, frontage, things like that, to try and find the similarities, make those sales research tools very, very powerful. Now, some of the tools have all of those features. Some of them have some of those features. And so what you're going to find is you're going to have a little bit of a mixed bag of one tool might be great at one thing and not quite so good at another thing. So it's really, what is it that you're trying to achieve in doing that? Now, in doing that, you can also, research the sell price of the finished product. So if you're going to be creating vacant land, if you're going to be creating new townhouses, then what is the current market offering for those products? Okay. So as soon as those have sold and settled, then you're going to get some price points on those. Now, there are some limitations on, I guess, research on the finished product. And this is something that a lot of people don't really understand how the mechanism works. You see, what tends to happen is a funder, so your bank or the bank that's actually funding the development project, might have a condition that says you must do a pre-sale, so sell off the plan before you actually construct. So you might have a contract of sale that actually exists, but unless and until the product is created and then the title is created and then the property is actually settled, the recording of that sale may not happen for quite some time. And so when you're doing your sales research, it's really, really important to be able to differentiate the difference between the contract signing date and the settlement date. So if those two are very, very close together, then you've got some really good insights into the fact that it is, sold 30 days ago, settled today. That's a good sign. But if it was sold a year ago, or maybe even 2 years ago and settled today, then that was sold in a very, very different market. So your sales research tools help you to actually do the homework on those, okay? It also allows you to find out how many opportunities exist in your area with some specific criteria. So depending upon what your criteria might be, if you're looking for specific kind of opportunities, so for example, if you're looking for a duplex, then you might want to understand what is the zoning for that duplex, what is the land size for that duplex, what is the frontage requirement for those duplex. So you want to understand how many opportunities raw actually exist in the market altogether. So, is there 1,000 opportunities in this particular suburb? And of those, how many are currently on the market? Okay, the sales research tools are a good sales research tool. We'll be able to differentiate those two things in particular. And then when you find the particular property that you're interested in, so you're doing some homework on a particular property, you can then do the research on that one property to say, when was it last sold? Who was it last sold to? How many agents did they go through? What was the asking price when it was initially listed? Has there been some vendor discounting as they go? Was it an owner occupier versus an investment property? All those things, the sales research tools are going to paint a picture to give you an insights as to what's actually going on. Okay, it's also going to help, the sales research tools also going to help you to do a little bit of your area research. So that suburb research that I was talking about before with regards to demographics, they will also help you to do a whole bunch of things like that. Now, when you do that, the kinds of things that you can actually search on. So you can search on an individual property. So that's the first thing. You can search on an entire suburb. You can search on an entire street. You might be able to search on a range of similar products. You might be able to create a whole bunch of filters that do the kinds of things that you're looking for. You can search on the ownership details. So you know how many people with the name Flux have a property in that particular area. Now that is state specific, so some states don't allow that. So in New South Wales and in Queensland, you are going to be able to do name searches and be able to see the ownership details of the property. In Victoria, you're not going to be able to see that, for example. So just to give you some insights that every state jurisdiction has some slightly different rules on that. Then you've got, I guess, once you've done, I guess, the research on that one property, you can then do what is called an AVM, an automatic valuation, right? So an automatic valuation is then the system trying to go out and compare all of the like properties that it can find in the area. Now, an AVM, being computer generated, is going to try and find everything for you at a much faster rate that you're going to be able to find it. And it's going to have a varying degree of accuracy based on how many comparable properties are there in the area. So if there's a lot of comparable properties, then it's going to be super accurate. If there's not many comparable properties, then it's going to be a little bit more rubbery. How many of those properties have actually turned over? Again, if lots of them have turned over, then you're going to be super accurate. If less of them have turned over, it's going to be a little bit less accurate. So an AVM can give you a price guide for an area, but it is not necessarily an exact science to say this is the price point. But it's a good indication to say, am I in the ballpark? Have I got the features, functionality, price points, and that sort of thing that I'm looking for to then determine that I'm in the right price range for the product that I want to buy. By way of comparison, there is then a thing called a CMA, a comparative market analysis. So the difference between an AVM and a CMA is an AVM is automated by, I guess, the system itself, whereas a CMA is manually generated by you. So you can find, I guess, the properties, the system will prompt you with ones that it thinks are comparable, and then you can one by one go through each of those property and rank them. This is better than my property, this is worse than my property. And as you start to rank that, you're going to be a little bit more accurate because you can, have a look at the pictures inside. You can have a look at, I guess, the frontage. You can have a look at, are there any funny things about that particular property that might make it unusual? Perhaps it's got an unusual aspect or an unusual view that might make it superior or inferior to your particular property. So a CMA then allows you to do that granular search to get a lot more accurate price guide. Okay. Sales research tools will also do some suburb profiles, so some demographics to understand the kind of people that are actually living in the area. So it might give you the age categories, how many male, how many female, how many are owner occupied, how many are, I guess, investor stock, that sort of thing, and a breakup of the ownership statuses and that sort of thing. It will also, a sales research tool will also tell you the current market information, or CMI. So what is currently listed on the market today. So an agent has put a listing up on one of the sales portals, and so they're able to look at all those sales and they'll actually grab copies of that listing, keep that inside the sales research portal so you can actually see a copy of that particular ad. That's how you can see the variations in price points over time, how agents have changed, that sort of thing. So you can see what is on market right now. Now, whilst it is accurate in doing that, you need to bear in mind that sometimes an agent may have actually sold the property or may have even withdrawn the property because the vendor is no longer selling it, but they might leave the ad up because it helps marketing wise for them. So it can give some false triggers in actually trying to do that as well. Now, the other thing that a sales research tool can do, it can do title and document searches. So when you are super interested in a property, you might want to do a title search to see what encumbrances there might be on there. Are there mortgages that are sitting on there? Are there easements that are sitting on there? Perhaps there's a covenant that might be sitting on there, or some other instrument that is protecting or black marking that particular title. So you can search on those and pay for them directly within the sales research tool. The other thing you can do is you can look at mapping. Now, the mapping that you're going to look at here is a little bit more simplistic than the mapping that you're actually going to get in the development research tools, but it is still very helpful. So you're going to get things like contours, you're going to get things like easements, you're going to get aerial photography, although the aerial photography won't be the most recent. Sometimes it's a couple of years old, but you will still actually see things like roof lines and what's happening in the street and where the nearby shops, the nearby parks, those sorts of things. And typically, you're also going to get Google Street View. Okay. You'll also typically get copies of photos that have actually gone on the sales listing portal. So when somebody put an ad up to either list it for rent or list it for sale, those photos get uploaded to the sales portals, and the sales research tools grab copies of those so that they can keep that on file. So you can actually have a look inside the property without physically having to walk up to the property. So you can also see things like the ad itself. So it's grabbed a copy of that ad and it's copied that locally into the sales research tool. So you can actually go through and see how that ad has changed over time. Maybe they listed it at a really high price and they may have cooked the market. So they are going to update the ad, update the wording, those sorts of things. You typically get to see variations of those listings as they go. And when you do that, that's going to give you a good insight into the sales campaign and how desperate that seller is to actually sell. If you see massive drops in price, that might tell you something. If they go through 2 or 3 agents, that might tell you something else. So that it gives you a really good insight into that. So you can also get full sales history. So, John Smith sold it to Mary Bloggs, who sold it to Jack Daniels. And you can see what the price points were, at what point in time, that sort of thing. Similarly, you can see rental history for all of those properties. So anytime it's actually been listed for rent. And also in most instances, you're going to be able to see property dimensions and zoning information. So all of that information, pretty much all the tools have that information. The distinction between them all is whether or not you can search on every piece of that information. So some of those tools will allow you to just display the information. So for example, you might be able to search on just the street address, or you might be able to search on just the suburb, and then it will display the zoning and it will display, I guess, other bits of information. Whereas other tools will actually allow you to dive deeper into the data, be a lot more granular in your search, and be able to search on something like zoning or frontage or things like that. Okay, so each of the tools has the same amount of data, I guess, at its core fundamentals, with the basic platform level, but then they all have some idiosyncrasies with regards to extra features, extra benefits that will take them one way or the other. So that's kind of an overview of what the sales research tools do. Now, as I touched on, there are some free tools and then there are some paid tools. Now, the free tools, a lot of people want to use the free tools because A, it doesn't cost money, but the free tools tend to be lacking a lot in the searchability and the customization. So where I said before, all that information that can actually be displayed, the free tools tend to not allow you to search on all of that. So most of those free tools are a variation of not actually a sales research tool, but rather a listing portal that has been, I guess, spun around so you actually get a different view of the world. So you can actually see the ad that's actually gone up, and then when the sale has actually transacted, but you won't necessarily see all of the history. So you may not be able to search, for example, on the zoning. You might not, or definitely won't be able to search for things like the zoning. You won't be able to search for rental histories. You won't be able to search for title information and looking at maps and contours and all sorts of things like that. So they're very limited in the functionality. So some of the tools that can do that, the sales research tools, the listing portals themselves, I should say. So realestate.com, domain.com, homely.com.au, Real Estate View, and On the House. They tend to be the ones that a lot of people go to for the free. And you can absolutely, I guess, brute force your way to finding out everything that you need. But they are time consuming and they're cumbersome. And to get the information that you can do on the paid versions, you might take 5 or 10 minutes in a paid version, and to get the same level of accuracy on the free versions, you might spend 3, 4, 5 hours. So you've got to have a look at, well, what is my hourly rate worth from I have a day job, what is my hourly rate worth? And if I'm spending 5 hours doing research on a property or research on an area, and I could do that in 10 minutes on one of the other tools, then is the cost of the subscription actually a cost anymore, or is actually an investment in your time? Okay, so that's probably the first part that I actually say. Then the paid tools. Well, there are fundamentally 3, I guess, core competitors, and then one kind of outsider that keeps getting thrown up all the time as somebody that does a little bit of a variation on things. So the 3 core contenders, RPData, they have been around since day dot. They were pretty much the first sales research portal in the country. So they were the one that actually started the market. Then Pricefinder, I guess, came about 10 years ago as a competitor to them. And then more recently, National Property Data has then come in as a new upstart with, I guess, because it's more of a new to market, they're coming in with lots of points of difference with regards to how they're actually trying to solve the problem that RPData, Pricefinder have been doing for many, many years. So RPData, I guess, having been doing it for a very, very long time, is the market leader because they've just been around forever. Everybody knows their name, okay? But their technology hasn't been updated in quite some time. And so from a features perspective, people like Pricefinder and National Property Data tend to be able to outbeat them in some particular areas. Now, Pricefinder came to the market about 10 years ago, as I said, and at the time they came out with a much nicer, slicker interface at the time. Remember, this is 10 plus years ago, but since it came out, the ownership of the company actually changed, the technology direction actually changed, and the product progression from a features and benefits perspective kind of stagnated. And so it came out of the blocks really, really well, and got some really good momentum, and then I guess hasn't really had much product development ever since. National Property Data is relatively new to the market. They have come about 2 years ago, and in doing so, they're looking at the problem very, very differently, and more specifically, they're trying to make not the data extraordinarily accessible. So how can you access and interrogate the data in many, many ways that the other guys simply just can't do? And so from a features and benefits perspective, you'll find that National Property Data, not only is it a newer, slicker interface, but also the way that you can actually get to the data and the speed at which you can actually interrogate your data and get your results is much faster. So they're the three contenders. And then I said there's an oddball. So the oddball is one called Real Estate Investor. Now, Real Estate Investor is regularly compared against the other three, but what it does is a little bit differently. So under the covers, it's actually got the RPData platform that it actually bases all of its information on. But then what it does is it uses, I guess, the data that it gathers from RPData, and it adds some extra features and benefits that sit over the top of that, which is a little bit of a unique value proposition. So you're still fundamentally having that RPData data sitting underneath, but then having the value add on top. As a result of that, it's actually fundamentally, I guess you can just use that feature set all by itself. But if you want the full feature set to be able to say, hey, I want to do all my sales research tools, you're fundamentally paying for 2 subscriptions because you actually need Real Estate Investor and RPData under the covers. And when I talk to pricing on that, I'll show you what that actually means in a little bit of time. So from an RPData perspective, I'm going to do a very small demo. Most of you have actually seen RPData or heard of RPData in the past. It's been around for a long, long time. So let me just do a very, very quick demo on this. So now here is basically the user interface that's actually sitting here. We can actually search for an individual property, or we might search for a suburb. Now, if I'm looking for raw sites, then I would be searching for a suburb. If I'm looking for research on an individual property that I might be wanting to purchase, then I would put the specific property address into there. So I'm just going to give you an example of searching for an entire suburb. So I'm going to search Ryde in this particular instance. This is one that I did just a couple of moments ago, so it remembered exactly where I was. Now, the first things first is it actually goes and searches for every single property in Ryde. We can see that there's actually 15,000 properties in Ryde, so there's a lot, and it's going to list them all. Now, it can't display them all at once because there's a limitation with regards to speed and that sort of thing of how these platforms actually work. So they always restrict what they can actually display on screen or what they can display at any one point in time, okay? But then what it has over here is the ability to do some granular searches. So we can search on just houses, for example. We can search on just 3-bedroom houses, for example. We can search on minimum land size, maximum land size, the land use. So what can the land actually be used for, etc. When was the last sale date? When was the last settlement date? Remember I said before about I guess the contract date being the sale date, and the settlement date might be some period of time later. So you can actually search on just the sales that have happened in the last 3 months, or just the settlements that have happened in the last 3 months, and you might get a very, very different result out of that. There's also some advanced filters that sit down here. Are there things like air conditioners and that sort of thing actually sitting inside there? What are some of the things like, has it got swimming pools, granny flats, those sorts of things? Distances to schools, etc. But one of the things that it is distinctly lacking is the ability to search on the zoning of the property, for example. So you can't search on, now this is Ryde, so New South Wales, so you can't search on, is it an R2, is it an R3? So if you're trying to look for raw development sites that have a specific zoning potential, you can't search on it. And yet if I actually go to any one of these individual properties, then as I scroll down here, now in this particular information instance, it's low density residential is what it is, okay? So now they've given this a generic zoning name. So this being New South Wales, that should have been an R number, R1, R2, R3. They've just genericized it. So the data from a zoning perspective is a little bit hit and miss in RPData. And so you don't always get what it is that you're expecting to get. So they've grabbed it from a data source and not necessarily cleansed it as well as you would like to think, okay? But when we're actually looking at this one particular property, we can see, well, in this instance, there's only one photo, but we can see the type of property it is, how big the land is, when it was last sold. This is probably a really bad example of one that I could have picked on, to be honest. So maybe I can pick another property just as an example. let's do number 3. This is just random, so I don't know what it's going to give for me. So here we go. This one's got a lot more photos, got 23 photos. We can actually go scrolling through each of these photos, actually have an idea of what's inside. We can see, I guess, when it was built, give or take, when it was last sold, who was last sold to, what the zoning is, just says residential. Again, it's not very specific on that. We can see who the ownership was. Now, this is only you're only going to get the ownership in Queensland and New South Wales, folks, because I guess the other states don't have it. What development permits are actually happening in the area, and what sales history. So how many times it's actually sold, who it actually sold to, when, and it's for market history. So it's only been listed for sale one particular time, but it's been on the market for rent a number of times, and we can see what the rent was. Okay, so it gives you a fairly good idea on what you can actually do. Now, as I said, it has got a limitation in that if you're trying to do this for development purposes, you can't actually search on, I guess, the development potential of the property. So that makes it, so the zoning in particular. So if you're trying to find all of the R2s that are somewhere between 600 and 800 because you want to do a duplex, then you have to manually go through every single one of those properties and actually do a whole bunch of homework. Okay, so that does make it a little bit challenging. Now, that said, they have attempted to resolve that. Now, let me bring it up here. So you can see this little alert that sits up here. You've been invited to try out the RPData Professional Beta. Okay, so this is a new platform. When I say new, it's been in beta for nearly 2 years now and has not actually gone live. So you can try it out. So when we go and try it out, it goes to, now that old platform hadn't been updated for a very, very, very long time. Now this new platform is very slick, okay, and looks much more modern, much more robust, that sort of thing. And when we start to search in here, again, I'm going to search for ride, and now much nicer, slicker user interface. Now when I look at the filters, we've got a whole bunch more filters that we can actually go to. Now, where it gets super interesting here, look at all these filters on the side here. See how there's a little black pop out. It says, this feature is not available on your subscription. Now, the only subscriptions that actually get all of the access to all of the features are something like $350 a month. Okay, so for anyone who's buying I guess a normal RPData Professional subscription off of any reseller, or if you're going direct to RPData, unless you're paying the really, really, really top dollar, then chances are you're not going to get all of these features. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of these that are just not available. But the ones that are available, the core filters, you would think, when I look here, property subtype, development zone, woohoo, look at this development zone. This is exactly what I want. Now I'm in ride. I think I want R1. So I'm going to search for actually, let's do R2, I should say. So there's R2. I'm going to search on that. And then I apply the filter. And what's the results? Uh-oh, no results. So there's something fundamentally broken about the RPData platform in trying to actually do that. Now, I don't know what that is. I think that's because of the fact that it is in beta. But either way, whether you're on the old version, and I'm just going to switch back to the old version, switch back to RP Professional, or the new one, if you're trying to search on your development zoning, then you can't do that. Equally, you can't search for things like the frontage. Okay. Now, if I go and look at Pricefinder by comparison, so Pricefinder, their interface is a little bit different. Okay, so at the time it was a little bit more user-friendly than RPData, but things have actually changed over time. So now when we do a property search here, we can search on sales, ownership, for rent, for sale, etc. So if I search on the ownership, I'm going to search for ride and hit search. Now you need to make sure that you're in the right state. So New South Wales over here, before you actually do that. And you'll notice that there was a warning. I'm only going to give you 1,000 results. It's asking you whether or not you want to clarify or validate any of these. Now we can actually say things like land use here. So we can actually say, well, what it's actually been used for, but we can't actually say the zoning. Okay. So that's just what it's currently used for. And if I say the property type, again, can't really determine the zoning. So again, not very good if you're wanting to use it from a zoning perspective. But what I can do, again, purchase date. Now that is the contract date, not the settlement date in this instance. So it doesn't have the granularity of search that RPData has in that particular aspect. But you can do searches for land size, number of bedrooms, number of carports, but it's very limited in the filtering that you can actually do. If I do the search, it will come back with some results, and it's going to display those on the map. And it's just wait for a moment while it actually generates that. And it also has it down the bottom here. Now notice that it doesn't give you all of the ownership data. That is based on the subscription level that you have. So if you don't pay for the right subscription, so we can see that there's 338 sales. I'm just going to zoom in here, see if it'll let me do that. And zoom in again. So we can start to see them. We can start to see and map them out and walk around the map and actually see the sales. So, you know, nice. But again, if I'm doing development research, this one is a little bit challenging. But from a real estate agent's perspective, both RPData and Pricefinder are perfectly fine for a real estate agent. Now, I'm going to go to National Property Data now. So let me just close that and go back to scratch. So search for Ride again. Okay, so I want Ride New South Wales. Now I can go to more filters here. Again, we've got the sale date from and the settlement date from. So we've got that feature back. That's great. We've got the area size. That's great as well. And I've also got plan information. So over here, I can actually say what the zoning is. So I could actually say R2 in this particular instance. Oh, hang on, that's my bad. I think I've got Queensland. I should actually have New South Wales. That's my bad. Let me do that again. If I do that here, I should be able to do, there's R2. Okay, so we can do the R2, and I could say somewhere between 600 and 800, for example. Okay, so just as a basic search, see results, and this one is actually going to come back. So if you're looking for it, so this is all of the sales results for everything that matches your zoning raw site potential. So, you know, National Property Data, awesome for doing that sort of research. And then you can select all of these, click on map view, and it will then go and I guess show them on a map. Now, all of the platforms, irrespective of where they are, they do have a limitation with regards to how many properties that you can actually see at any one point in time, just in order to keep the speed up. So predominantly, almost all of them have that $1,000 limit. So we can see that there's 1,000 selected here. So you might want to refine your category just to minimize that a little bit, just to see what is actually going on. Now, equally, I can come and change this filter. I can update the filter and say, well, I want to know currently on market. I want to know that it's currently for sale, and that current market is, so that for sale is current, for example. So I'm just going to refine that. So this is now the zoning with the land size that I'm after that is currently on the market right here, right now. So that's a much nicer type result to actually get out of that. So from a sales perspective, this is a much cleaner interface, much faster to actually do your research in order to get where what you're doing from a sales perspective. It's also the only tool that will allow you, if I just go back and I'll pick on Ride again, sorry. It's also the only tool that will actually let you, let me clear those results, clear filters. It's the only sales portal that will actually, and again, that's New South Wales, that will actually let you search for multiple lots, okay? And now multiple lots on a single title is what they call a splitter block. So if I have a look at this, if I go to plan information, number of lots, I want to say, show me the ones that are minimum of 2. I want to make sure they're non-strata. That means that they're not a townhouse or not an apartment complex. And if I do search on that, this is all of these splitter blocks that are actually contained within Ride. Now it's going to take a couple of moments to bring those up. And if I, again, select all and click on map view, what we're going to see here is a whole bunch of splitter blocks. Now, because of how many there are, I am going to have to scroll in a little bit. Whoops, went too far. My bad. What have I done? There they are over there. Okay, so as we scroll in on some of these, we can actually see, for example, if I look at this one and scroll in, you can see that it's actually on single block on 2 titles. Okay, so that splitter block feature, for anyone who thinks that is only a Queensland thing, that's actually available all the way around the country. You get splitter blocks in New South Wales, in Victoria, South Australia, WA, etc. So really, really cool tool to actually do all of that. Anyway, that's I guess the features and benefits of those 2 tools. Sorry, those 3 tools. So if I'm giving, I guess, a score for, I guess, the features and benefits out of all of those, then I'm going to say that National Property Data, in my mind, wins from a granularity in order to be able to search for, I guess, the most flexible searches that you can actually find to determine what is the raw product that you're actually creating. Now, equally, and I didn't do this search before, but I should probably do this again now. Equally, if I'm looking, let's go to Ride again. If I'm going to find the finished product, okay, so let's just say I'm creating some townhouses, then when I try to search and filter for the property type, I've only got these limitations here. So houses, I've got units, but I don't have townhouses, I don't have apartments or anything like that. And the problem is that these guys have actually using the titles office information who only differentiate it as a unit. Okay. Now over here, when we actually have a look, they actually do differentiate it as a townhouse. If I can find something, there's house. Of course, I can't find one when I'm looking. So that's a low set 1 story. Of course, why can't I find one that says townhouse? But you get the idea. So they do capture the data, but they don't allow you to search for that data. Whereas if I go to National Property Data, and again, let's do Ride. And if I do filters, I'm just going to clear the current filters. And what I want to do is, I think it's property attributes, so property type. So I can actually do a terrace, a townhouse. So I can actually search for all the townhouses, for example. So if I'm trying to search for my finished product, what is the finished product going to sell for? Again, National Property Data wins the test with regards to being able to research that finished product type results. So if you're trying to do this super fast, okay, if you want to manually brute force it, then you can do it for free. If you're going to, I guess, try and speed it up a little bit, you could use RPData or Pricefinder. If you want to put it on steroids, then National Property Data is the tool as the winner in my particular book. Now, the difference, so out of those 3, National Property Data is the winner. Now, I did say that Real Estate Investor was then this kind of add-on that was a little bit weird, right? So what Real Estate Investor does is it actually adds a little bit of extra value over the top. And that extra value gives you some insights. What it does is it actually searches and captures all of the listings data. So when an agent puts a listing up, the agent will put specific keywords in there typically, and it might say subject to council approval or suitable for duplex or things like that. So Real Estate Investor helps you to start to search for those keywords. So you can actually start to find properties where the agent has identified that as potential with development potential. The other thing that Real Estate Investor does, and it's really aimed for the investor market, not the developer market, but it gives you a whole bunch of features where you can actually keep track of, I guess, any property that you think that you want to purchase. And it will try to map out things like the 10-year growth map projections and what the cash flow projections would be on that property based on rental yield curves and a whole bunch of stuff like that. It's not really a development research tool per se, but more if you're wanting to do some investment and long-term buy and hold, fantastic tool for that. So I get asked all the time, which tool should I use? So out of those 4, National Property Data for me wins every single day of the week. Now that said, we've not really considered price. So let's have a look at the price between all of these. So let's have a look here. So this is Real Estate Investor price point. So Real Estate Investor is $99 a month. And as I said, it gives you a whole bunch of value in what it actually does, but it's really aimed for that, I guess, investment type market rather than development type market. And what it doesn't give you is the underlying sales history that actually sits underneath that. So in order to do that, you need to go up to their $149 a month package, and you'll see when they do that, they actually then bundle in the RPData Core Logic product. Okay, so if you're wanting to do any serious development research tool and you're wanting to use Investor, then you'll be on this $149 a month type package. They also have a larger package, which then it bundles in a development research tool called ArchiStar. So you could get all three bundled together for $248 if that was something that was actually attractive to you. But again, the Investor product is, I guess, really the investment, and the RPData product is not as granular as National Property Data in order to. So it's going to be a good all-rounder package, but won't necessarily do everything that you want to do if you went and bought the best of breed in each of those. If we go to RPData, so we can see here their list price. So list price is $198 per month if you do it per month, or $139 if you do, I guess, on an annual monthly basis. Notice that it's single state access limitations, okay? It then goes up and up and up. What they call their premium package, the $199, is what they're recommending. That does give you national access and a whole bunch more things. This is typically the package that a lot of the resellers, including myself, we buy in bulk and we bundle those things together. That's typically the package that you're actually going to get, so a $199 type package. And in doing that, that's the feature set that you're actually going to get. Or if you want all the bells and whistles, it's $279 a month, which has come down. It used to be about $350 per month. But that might be if you're, I think that $279 is if you're on a long-term contract. Pricefinder, on the other hand, Pricefinder is $175 per month. So I guess when we look just between those two, $199 versus $175, Pricefinder is a little bit more price competitive if you're buying off the shelf. Again, there are resellers that, including myself, that actually do bundle that. Then National Property Data. It is, if you buy it annually, $99 per month, so much, much cheaper. If you want to do that's if you do a 12-month contract. If you want to do month to month, it does get a little bit more expensive, but it does give you the flexibility of stopping any time. So you've got the advantage of going either way. Whereas Pricefinder, again, you've got the flexibility of month to month, so you can cancel at any point in time. RPData, you'll notice, are all over 12-month subscriptions, so you're locked in for 12 months. And even then, when you're locked in for 12 months, you need to give them 3 months notice. So you're actually effectively locked in for 15 months. So note that as a little gotcha. Now, I did mention that there are resellers that try to get bulk purchasing power because of the fact that we've got such a large community that are wanting access to these tools. So we have done exactly that on your behalf. So if you come to Developer Network, so this is Developer Network website, come to the shop, which is just here. And if you scroll down, and you'll see discounts and subscriptions, and you'll see all of the discounts that we can actually get you access to. So National Property Data, we can get for $99 a month if you are on a month-to-month contract, or $89 per month. So that is a 10% discount on that. So much, much cheaper in doing that. And RPData we can get for $99. So RPData is more expensive, and you're locked into that 12-month contract plus 3 months. Okay, so RPData is more expensive for a product that's not quite as flexible. And Pricefinder is $110 per month, so cheaper than their list price, but again, month-to-month type contract. Now, those prices we get all the day, all the time, every time. Right now, subject to when you're actually watching this, if you're watching this live, then you're going to be able to get the benefit of this. If you're watching this at some point in the future, then this particular special, the 20% discount special, expires on the 30th of April in 2023. So this special will actually reduce the price again for National Property Data to make that a very, very, very competitive product. So let me just show you, when you click on each of these links, they go to a custom page that actually belongs to each of the suppliers. So you can actually see that this is RPData, for example, but it's got my logo on it because this is me actually able to resell through them. So this is where you get that discount if you wanted to sign up to RPData. Equally, Pricefinder, there's my logo sitting up the top, and I guess their price point is a little bit cheaper. The 110 per month, I should say. There it is there, special 100 plus GST. And then National Property Data, this is the typical special, and this is the super special. Sorry, hang on, wrong one. This is the super special. So $88 if you want to go month to month, or $79 if you do a 12-month subscription. So super cheap, folks. It is only available to the end of the month. So if you really want to know the best product out there, then that is the one, and it's the best price as well. So you'd be crazy not to get onto it. If you are on one of the other platforms, if you're on RPData, you only need to give a month's notice in order to get off that platform. If you are on if you're on Pricefinder, you need to give a month's notice. If you're on RPData, you need to give 3 months notice. So my guidance would be go and actually, give notice now and sign up while the special is available. Now, the special is that good, the savings on this are that good, that 20% discount, that it would actually fund, if you really wanted to, it would actually fund your annual membership into our platform. So you're going to save yourself, $20 plus a month over the course of the year. Plus, this is locked in forever. If you lock this price in, for as long as you've actually got an active subscription at National Property Data, that price is yours. So hope that helps with that, folks. So that's the sales research tools. Now, I'm not going to be able to go into that level of detail in the development research tools just because time is not going to allow. But from a development research tools, there are, similar sorts of things where what we're trying to do here is actually work out the development research, what is the yield of a particular property, okay? So if we're trying to do developments, how many of the thing that we want to create can we actually get on there? So we tend to be told by the real estate agent that there are, the zoning says I can do X, but when you actually look at the constraints that apply to the site, then the constraints sometimes say, no, you can't do that because, there's all these things that are actually sitting there. There might be protected trees, there might be flooding, there might be bushfire overlays, there might be all sorts of things that are actually stopping that from actually happening. So again, there is free tools, there's paid tools, and there's a couple of oddball contenders that are actually out there. So the free tools is each government jurisdiction that actually has planning available to it will actually have its own free tool. Okay, so in Queensland it is called PD Online, or it's also called Queensland Globe, depending upon if it's a local government or state government that you're actually doing the research tool. In New South Wales, it's called the New South Wales Planning Portal. In Victoria, it's called Vic Planning. In South Australia, it's called Plan SA, and they also have a mapping tool called SAPA, the South Australian Property Planning Atlas. And in Western Australia, they have Plan WA. Now, all of those state governments and or local governments in Queensland, they have the free tools that will give you all of the zoning, all of the overlay, all the constraints that are actually sitting on that particular property, and all of the rules that actually sit within that council to say what can you or can't you do on the site. Now, the challenge is that the amount of data they give you is this big, okay? And you need to do a whole bunch of interpretation of that data, which can take some time. And if you're not a specialist, if you're very much learning the process, it can take some time to do it. And that's where the paid tools start to come in. So the paid tools, they have put some boffins behind the scenes who've actually gone and read all of these planning rules and started to, tweak the tools to be able to interpret those rules for you and start to give you all sorts of information, yield information that's actually going to help you and identify much, much faster the issues, challenges, and constraints that actually sit there. Now, the three contenders in this particular department, one called Stash, one called Land Checker, and one called ArchiStar. So they're the three contenders that actually sit in there. Plus, there's two, newbies to the market that don't have coverage everywhere, but they are a point solution. So they're not going to solve all of your problems, but they solve one problem really, really well. So I'm going to touch on those guys in a couple of moments. Okay, so a company called Point Data and a company called PropCode. Okay, so just note those, and I'll actually come back to them. So firstly, what does the research tools, what will they actually allow you to do? Okay, so you're going to be able to find the development potential for a site. So the zoning says you can do one thing, but you're going to be able to work out what the yield is on that. So you're going to identify all the overlays, So some of those are going to be informational overlays. Some of them are going to be critical overlays. As I said, flooding and bushfire and heritage and, character precincts and all sorts of things like that, which might constrain it. Are there protected trees on the property? What are the contours that are actually sitting on there? Now, the sales research tool had contours, but generally the contours are a long way apart. So sometimes 2 meters, sometimes 5 meters apart for the contours. Whereas in the development research tools, the contours are generally a lot closer together. So 0.5 meter or 1 meter contours, which means that your accuracy on your site analysis is going to be much, much better. Okay. You're also going to be able to do satellite imagery, and typically on top of that, high-res aerial imagery. Now, quite often that high-res aerial imagery is an additional add-on, so it does cost a little bit extra to get that feature, but that way you can see exactly what's happening right here, right now. So those photos are generally weeks or months old, whereas the satellite imagery might be something like a Google aerial photo that might be sometimes years old. So sometimes you can start to see activity actually happening in the area just by looking at the tracking of that aerial imagery and as how things actually go over time. You can also see recent planning approvals. So is there a planning approval on this particular site? What other planning approvals are happening in the areas all the way around you? So lots of really good tools and that actually help you to see precedents of other things that have actually happened. You obviously get to see some of the same tools that you get to see in the sales research tools, so things like Google Street View and that sort of thing. But one of the keys to these tools is the ability to start to filter again for opportunities. So filtering for things like, again, the zoning and again, the frontage and whether or not a critical overlay actually sits there or not. Okay, so the amount of filtering and the amount of granularity of that filtering tends to be better in the more expensive products, and I guess a little bit more simplistic in the cheaper products, okay? But still very, very good. The National Property Data filtering starts to cross over into that department, but is not a replacement for the development research. As a matter of fact, they are two very distinctly different purposes, but you're going to start to see some commonalities between those, okay? So what you'll find is that the sales research tools start to bubble up with some of the features in the development research space, and the development research tools start to bubble down, and there's going to be a little bit of crossover of some of the features in between, but you need both, okay? It's not a case of one over the other, it is a case of both, okay? Again, in that regard, so title research, so you can do title searches and document searches, that sort of thing. You can do yield analysis, so how many products can I actually get in here? If I'm trying to do land subdivisions, how many lots can I get? If I'm trying to do townhouses, how many townhouses can I get? If I'm trying to do units, how many units can I get? So they're very good at actually helping you to actually understand that. Now, the more expensive tools, okay, are going to be much better at that yield analysis, and they'll use some algorithms to actually work that out. Okay, a thing called parametric design, which can do thousands and thousands of designs in a very, very short amount of time. And all of them will typically do a due diligence report as well. So you get to, I guess, get a summary of all of that. So if you're looking for investors or if you're going to take this to the bank in order to get finance, it's going to summarize all of that into a single report for you. Nice, simple, easy to help you out. Now, as I said, they do start to bubble down with some of the feature sets. So you will see sales history in these tools, but typically it's not searchable, whereas the sales research tools are searchable, okay? And so I guess you'll start to see that information, but you won't be able to interrogate that information. And then lastly, then a lot of these tools will actually allow you to do high-level feasibilities to work out order of magnitude whether or not your sites are actually going to be developable. So that's what a development research tool actually does. And as I said, the three big ones are Stash, Landchecker, and Archistar, okay? So let's have a look at some of the features. So Stash, if we start with Stash, I'm not going to go and play with these ones. This would take a long, long time to go through the features of all of these because they are so feature rich. So not, I guess all three products are so feature rich, it will actually take some time. So I'm just going to talk at a very, very high level. So Stash will allow you to do some custom searches. So you can search for zoning, search for area, search for frontage, number of lots. Is it on and off market? Okay, so so those custom searches are very, very useful, but you know it doesn't necessarily let you search for all of the filtering that you need to say, well, I want to eliminate particular things where they don't have, a critical overlay, for example. So it's going to give you a good starting point, but it doesn't take you all the way through the end, but it does narrow down the number of sites that have that development potential that you're actually potentially looking for in that area. What Stash does, which is its true claim to fame and it's the power of this tool, is it allows you to save that particular property into a save list, or what they call stash it. Okay, so you can stash it in the save list, and it is what they call a CRM, a customer relationship management platform, that allows you to, I guess, keep notes against that property. So every time you contact the property owner or go through the agent or whatever, you can take notes on it and you keep track of that over time. So it does create a nice little database. You can track all of your opportunities at any one point in time, what the status of those opportunities are. Have I gone and reached out to them? Did they tell me to go away? Did they say come back in 6 months? In which case I put a flag on it to come back in 6 months. All those sorts of things. It allows you to track those opportunities really well. It allows you to do some feasibilities against the properties, but I guess one of the next claims to fame of this particular product is it allows you to print and send templated letters out to landowners. Now, in doing so, there's a whole bunch of templates that you can actually use to do that. They have a printing company that, I guess, plug into the back end, and then you can customize your letters and send that out. So if you're trying to send letters on bulk and you don't like the idea of handwriting, it's a really good idea to try and, I guess, get that across the line. Myself personally, I prefer the more personal touch with my letters. I guess I tend to not send thousands of letters. I tend to send more individualized letters. And so a handwritten letter for me is a little bit more powerful, has a little bit more oomph. But if you're trying to do things on scale, then this is a really good way to actually do that. They also have third-party plugins, and those third-party plugins means that you can add extra bits of information from other tools at an additional cost, of course. So, for example, National Property Data is one that plugs into there. Pricefinder is one that also plugs in. So you'd want either, or you probably wouldn't want both. But again, my recommendation, National Property Data. You can do some, I guess, aerial imagery as an add-on, and you can also see what development approvals are actually sitting in and around the area, not just on that property, but sitting on all the properties around you. So Stash is I guess, a good feature set. But is not as powerful as some of the other tools. But where it does have power, it's really, really good at. So stashing and the CRM side of things, it's really excellent. Being able to print and send letters, it's also really excellent. Now, that said, it has had the competitive advantage in those two fronts for quite some time. I am aware of the competitors, I guess, and there's probably some, I guess, commercial in confidence type things that are sitting there. But I know that their competitors are building that capability at a massive rate of knots. So where they don't have it right now, then chances are they're going to have that in a very near future, because they want to have what is called parity from a feature set perspective, I guess, at the baseline, and then features above where they can if they're a more premium product. Okay, so that's them. Now, Land Checker does pretty much all the same things as Stash from a search from the zoning, a area or frontage, that sort of thing. You can also get some third-party plugins with regards to the development approvals and sales histories and things like that. You can also get, I guess, the aerial imagery, so that is really good. What it doesn't do, it doesn't have that Stash CRM capability, so you can't track that at this point in time, at least. So it is quite good, but the price point between them, from a bang for buck perspective, Stash is at this price point and Land Checker is all the way down here. So you're getting a lot of the functionality of Stash at a fraction of the cost. And so Land Checker is a very, I guess, a popular product that I see a lot of people out there actually using. Okay. Now, the last one is ArchiStar. Now, ArchiStar is the Rolls Royce of all of these. So pretty much anything that you want to do, plus some, ArchiStar have in spades. So what they've done is they've gone and they've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of man hours putting the planning rules of every single council into their platform. And based on that, they then use, I guess, machine learning to then start to number crunch against every single property to actually understand what the capability of that particular property is. And so I guess some of their higher level, because they've got tiering in their platform, some of their higher level tiers will actually tell you what the yield of the site is. If you're looking for a particular yield, you can actually search on that, and it's already been pre-calculated for you, so it makes your searches super, super fast. Okay, so the baseline product, those I guess excluded from a pricing perspective, as you can understand, but it is more of the feature, I guess, all the way up the top. They can also do, I guess, a yield analysis, I guess, a little bit more manually, and they also have a design generator called a parametric design. So parametric design is the machine learning that analyzes the property and does thousands and thousands of iterations of design in literally minutes to determine what is the best outcome on that particular site. Now, it's not a full design with regards to, hey, where's the kitchen, where's the bathroom, that sort of thing, but rather it's the footprint that particular property is going to take, that takes into consideration things like setbacks and car parking requirements and open space requirements and things like that. So really, really good to actually understand what you can actually get onto a site and all the different permutations of designs that you might think in your head. The machine does it in milliseconds, where you're going to take, I guess, hours or days to try and analyze some of that. It also has some very, very powerful search filters. So I guess a lot more granular search filters than I guess the land checkers and the stashes. So there's more things that you can actually filter on. And it also has a thing called permitted use. So what is allowed on that property? So sometimes the zoning of a property might allow you to do both subdivisions and townhouses and units. So it will actually tell you all three of them. Sometimes it'll only let you do just the subdivisions. So it'll tell you that it's just that. So it's going to give you the permitted use of what's actually capable. So, and all the different permitted uses that are actually allowed on that site. So is childcare allowed on there plus the subdivision, for example? Now the contours are super, super, I guess, granular. So 1 meter contours there. Plus they have this hot sites algorithm, as I said, which is the where they have number crunched every single property and said, well, we can actually see what that yield is. They have in their higher level products, they have third-party plugins, and that is third-party plugins, I guess, are bundled in. So they have a small, medium, and large type price point. And depending upon which of those tiers you're in, depends on how many of those third-party plugins you actually get. So you can get, I guess, CoreLogic and domain plugins to there. National Property Data is also working with them to try and get a plugin in the not too distant future. You can get your aerial photography from Nearmap. You can get your development approvals from two different sources, one called BCI and another one called Cordell. So there's all these different plugins at the different price points depending on what you're trying to do. They can also do feasibilities and they can store your favorite sites as well. And my understanding is they're actually working on that CRM capability. Now, I don't know what the timeline is. I can't speak to that. I don't know what the price point is. I can't speak to that. But my understanding is that they're trying to build something, I guess, very equivalent to what Stash has done at that entry level point and put it into their premium product. But time will tell whether that product actually gets to market. But my understanding is that's in the pipeline. You can also start to do filters on, what is the yield analysis and that sort of thing for these. So let's have a look from a pricing perspective where these things actually sit. So if we have a look here, this is the Stash price points, okay? So as we start to look at Stash, you can see that there's a starter package, there's a pro package, and an enterprise package. And you can see what all the feature sets are. I'm not going to go through every single one of those. And as you come down here, you can also see the optional plugins that actually sit there. So you can add those in at an extra cost. Now, this tab here is what is the price point for each of those. So the starter is $99 per month plus GST. The Pro is $199 plus GST. And the Enterprise is please call us because, do you want to do something super custom? Okay. So I guess the difference is obviously there's a couple of different features. The off-market searching, the splitter block searching, feasibilities and checklists and sending letters are not available in the cheap one. But if you want to be able to do those ones, then you're going to be $199 per month in order to do that. Land Checker. Land Checker has 3 tiers. There's a free tier, a $45 a month tier, and a $180 per month tier. So the $45 a month one is a very entry-level price point and has lots of features that actually are quite competitive in that space to make this a really nice tool. That said, if you're doing lots of searches, then there's a couple of limitations where down here, for example, when you do your property reports, you can only do 15 per month. Then, very quickly they're saying, well, you need to upgrade to the professional in order to do that. Okay, so lots of different, I guess, challenges there, but they do have aerial photography in that top level tool, and so the satellite imagery, Google Street View, and a whole bunch more. So these things can start to get a little pricey. And then Archistar have 4 tiers. So there's a free tier, a solo, an expert, and a business. And again, so free is clearly free. The solo is $95 per month. The expert is $295 per month, and the business is $895 per month. So for not much more than the land checker price, you get into the solo price point, and there's some really great features that you'll get over and above what land checker has. So for example, that parametric design that we were talking about before, the ability to do lots of yield analysis and designs on sites. They do have a limitation on the land size in the smaller price point. So they're not going to do a 1,000 lot land subdivision, for example. But if you're doing a 1 into 2, 1 into 3, that sort of thing, then you should be able to do that relatively well. So very, very feature rich for that entry level price point. And it's only some of the really, expert type tools that kind of go up to the next tiers. So being able to filter for opportunities in that hot sites that I was actually talking about, so where they've already predetermined the yield for you, so you can actually start to do that. And there's also identifying precedences where someone else has done what you're looking for nearby. And then you've got some, the aerial imagery. That aerial imagery is quite expensive, so that's why they're at the higher price points. But you can see from a feature perspective that $95 per month solo is actually quite a competitive product and very, very attractive. Now, this is a brand new price model for Archistar. It wasn't. It was a little bit more expensive previously, but they've adjusted, updated their feature sets and readjusted their price points as well. So that's super, super nice there. Now, I didn't want that one. Okay, so the last ones, and I said there were 2. Point solutions. So those tools I just said are more your big ticket items with regards to your development yield perspective and that sort of thing. But there are some point solutions that don't have all the features and benefits, but do one thing really, really, really well. Okay. And so one of those is a company called PropTech. Another one is called PropCode. I believe they are the names of the products. So PropCode is, I guess, a startup business that is starting in New South Wales, has all of the New South Wales area, I guess, covered, and is now starting to go, across the bottom of Australia and up to Queensland as well. So they're starting to spread their wings. But at the moment, it's only New South Wales. What they've done is the CDC compliance reports. So they've analysed every single property in New South Wales and said, hey, if you're trying to do a CDC, so complying development code development, then they can do a report that will tell you whether or not that particular property would pass the CDC compliance check. Okay, so you can do that either as individual reports, or you can do a monthly subscription where you can get an unlimited number of reports. So that's them. So that is PropCode. Now, PropCode, they are, in order to do that, $99 per month for a single report, or $199 if you want to do every single, an unlimited number of properties. So if you're looking at lots of properties all at the same time, then that is, I guess, potentially very, very worthwhile. The other company is one called PropTech. Now, PropTech have a number of products, but this one in particular is called Development Site Alerts. Now, it is very similar in concept to what PropTech have done, but rather than giving you a list of all the properties that, or being able to analyze every single property in and of itself, instead they get you to subscribe to alerts to say one that is capable of development. When it comes on the market, getting an alert to say, hey, maybe the agent didn't realize the capability of that, and so you get the alert on that. So now they analyze it for all sorts of things. So they'll analyze it for subdivision potential, I guess duplex potential, townhouse potential, that sort of thing, and what the yield analysis is on that. So you subscribe to an alert, and on a daily basis, as properties come on the market, you'll get an alert to say this has just come on the market, it's got the development potential. And then when you start to scroll the agent's ad, you'll realize whether or not the agent had any idea at all as to what they were actually sitting on. Okay, so that is Point Data. Their product is called Development Site Alerts. Okay, so now $99 per month, I believe, per state. At the moment, they are South Australia and Western Australia. So they started in South Australia, and now they're going the other way. So I guess the two companies, so Point Data and PropCode, they're going to, I guess, cross paths in the not too distant future. They're tackling the same problem, but from a very different direction. And so you can see, as an example, 365 properties were listed online yesterday. 25 of those were developable. 15 of them we think would be 1 into 2 or 1 into 3. 16 of these would be semi-detached dwellings, or 5 of those would be row houses. So you can see, I guess, a good summary of what those are, and you'd actually get that in a little Excel spreadsheet type approach. So that's, I guess, the development research tools, guys. So we've now covered the sales research tools and the development research tools. And the very last thing is, I guess, the Suburb research tools. So Suburb research tools are really the ones that are going to help you to actually understand what is the kind of products that you should actually be creating in the area. So it's really taking the statistics that have come from the Australian Bureau of Statistics and, I guess, manipulating that into a much more human readable format. Okay, so you can, for free, go to the Australian Bureau of Statistics and actually get that information for yourself. But there are also, so there's a really good tool on the ABS called Quick Stats. Okay, so if you search ABS Quick Stats, then you're going to find some fantastic results that are a little bit human readable, but you have to do a little bit of work on those to actually get what you're after. Two companies in particular, Suburb Trends and Microburbs, have taken that data and they've manipulated that in a way to be very, very human readable, and you can, I guess, and they blend that with other data sets as well, so that you can actually start to see some really good things like, how much money people are actually earning in the area, what their ethnicity type is. So, maybe you need to create a very particular kind of product of a very particular size. So are they aging in place, or are they young generation? Are they Asian, Indian, Caucasian? So the product type might actually change. Are you creating something that is multi-generational, so 2 or 3 generations living in the home? Or, maybe it have to have some feng shui or something like that, from a design perspective, that's going to give you some really good insights into the kind of product that you actually start to do. And then the last one is a tool called DSR data, demand and supply ratio data. And that helps you to actually, if you're going to keep stock, to actually understand the long-term yield potential, capital growth potential, how many people are searching for properties, how many properties are actually online at any one particular point in time, that sort of thing, how many days on market properties are taking to turn around, and a whole bunch more. Now, all of those themselves are going to take a whole bunch of time to go into, and given that I am way, way over on this particular session, I'm going to say that is probably the last, all I can actually go into for today. But what I would like to say is, if you are interested in our discounts at all, then, so you can get, I don't know why I put the PDN annual membership on there, but you can get our annual membership on there as well. So if you go to the shop, I'm going to share this. So if you go to the PDN shop, you can get access to all of these discounts and subscriptions, and also you can get our annual membership up there as well. So $250 to be an annual member and a turn up to every single one of our events all the way around the country, both physically and virtually. But it's really the discounts that we're really promoting today. So I didn't mean to mention that the annual membership, so my humble apologies. But there you go, folks. Hope you got plenty out of that today. Really, really big session. My voice is hoarse. Hope you guys are getting plenty out of it. I'm going to say, folks, till next time, I hope to see you at one of our upcoming events. Till then, bye for now. Now I've got to find the runaway button. See you, folks.